Hello, this is Dr. John Guymon here with Gateway to Wellness. And once again, we are here with another interview of someone here in our community. And we're here today with Shimon Ashton. Hopefully I got that close right there that time. And she's the owner of Doulas of Austin here. And just want to kind of say thank you to her first, but also let her introduce herself and actually what got her into becoming a doula.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to get the word out about doula support. It's so important and so helpful. So first and foremost, I'm a mother of two. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. I have been a nurse in obstetrics my entire career for about 25 years now. I started in the hospital. I've done antepartum, labor and delivery, newborn nursery, postpartum. And then I spent another big chunk of my career doing home visiting for high risk and vulnerable populations in maternity care. And I also went back and got my master's degree so that I could teach nursing to BSN students, to MSN students. So quite a history there. And it has been very interesting over those years to see what it looks like when we do our discharge teaching after you have your baby and send you out the door with this tiny human, to then going back several weeks or months into a home and seeing what that experience is now looking like. And so that really is what inspired me to want to do doula work. I noticed that there really was quite a gap in support. There was a big lack of preparation and education for people going into their birth, going into those early weeks and days with their babies. And so I wanted to make a difference in that. I wanted to help people have a better experience, a more confident experience. I wanted to try and make an impact in the high number of postpartum mood disorders that were happening due to the lack of support. And so that really was the main push for me to start Doulas of Austin.
Awesome. So kind of for people who haven't been in touch with a doula, kind of can you tell us a little bit what a doula is and kind of how you help out with that birth process?
Sure. So first of all, it's important to know that there's birth doulas and then there's postpartum doulas. And so birth doulas support during birth. So the technical term or definition for birth doula work is that we're non-medical, number one, and that we offer emotional, physical, and informational support to our clients. So what does that mean practically? It looks very different for every family. Their needs are very different. Their individual personalities during the birth process are very different. But in general, the big piece of it is information, giving you knowledge, giving you the resources that you need to dig deep and do your own research so that you're informed when you're heading into birth and that you have help getting the information you need to make decisions during the birth process should they need to be made in terms of interventions and whatnot. And then of course, emotional support. We encourage you, we guide you, we tell you you're doing an amazing job. We get your partner in there and encourage and support them in supporting you. And then of course, all of our magical tips and tricks as far as the physical support, helping you deal with the sensations of labor, helping to reduce the pain or cope better with the pain through the process. And then for postpartum doula support, it's kind of the same thing, information and physical and emotional support, but a big piece of that is hands-on practical help. When you bring a little baby home and you are also trying to recover from birth and sometimes a cesarean, major abdominal surgery, we need all hands on deck. So maybe we're doing a load of baby laundry. Maybe we're making sure that you have a nice, healthy meal prepared. Maybe we're helping you with breastfeeding. Maybe we're helping you entertain a toddler so that you can lay in bed and bond with your baby. Maybe you're asking us questions about what's normal. Is it normal if I go to the bathroom and I have a clot come out? How much bleeding is normal and what's not normal? When should I call my pediatrician about the baby's belly button, right? So there's lots of those questions. Is this okay? Is this normal? When do I call my provider? I need a shoulder to cry on. I need someone that's not my family that I can say, hey, this is really hard and not be worried that I'm judged. So that's kind of the two visions of what we do, birth and postpartum, and then a whole bunch more on top of that.
And that's huge right there, because I always put childbirth as kind of one of those major experiences in a woman's and also a couple's kind of life. And so, but with that, there's almost no information usually given to a woman going into that or coming out. And so just for such a major thing to not have the information right there.
It seems silly that is not just a part of becoming a parent, right?
Yeah, very true.
You have to go out there and you have to seek out the knowledge and the information. And that's why I'm so happy that doulas are becoming more well known, because we can help you do that.
Awesome right there. Because yeah, for us, we have 3 young boys which have all been born with doulas and with midwives and different things. But we also did a lot of kind of research before, just because it was one of those unknown, and we had so many people we knew that either had horror stories or different things going through that experience, that we knew the more that we could find out, the better that experience would be for everybody right there.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right?
Very, very true on that. So kind of tell me, what's your kind of philosophy on birth? Because I know a lot of people, whether it's kind of we always talk about natural birth or kind of hospital birth, all these different things. What would be kind of your philosophy on kind of what birth should be?
Right. Well, first of all, I'll say I don't think it should be anything. I also don't typically like the term natural. I think that all birth is natural. I think birth is birth is birth. So I typically say unmedicated versus medicated. My philosophy would be that I want people to have a beautiful birth experience, whatever that looks like for them. We can't plan birth. We can create a vision. We can prepare ourselves. We can build a strong support team. But in the end, it's going to go how it's going to go. And so my main goal or my philosophy is that I want people to feel empowered. I want them to feel informed, and I want them to be supported. Because if they felt like they were part of the decision-making process, then they're going to have a positive feel for that birth story. Right. And our birth story, again, we carry that for years and years, forever and ever in our hearts. We tell it 100 million times. Right. And so it's okay if it doesn't go how you had planned or how you had hoped. But what matters is that you felt respected and informed, and like you helped make the decisions that brought you down the road you went down. And then everybody is just going to have a better feeling about it. You know, a lot of times people will say, well, at least you have a healthy baby. That's all that matters, right? And that is just not the case. The parents' experience matters. And if they were respected matters. If they were informed matters.
Awesome. I like what you said there, because a lot of people have a plan going in, but how many plans actually go perfectly, especially if they're a birth, where you want them to go. And so be able to have someone like yourself there to kind of help direct that as you go through and help you make those choices is a huge part, because otherwise, we don't know what to do.
Yeah, and that's a big piece of the teaching that I do prenatally is let's come up with your birth preferences, but let's also go into birth with an open mind and a willingness to make changes and make decisions if and when they come up.
Very, very true. So tell me, kind of going into birth, but you mentioned kind of after birth, all the different things, because I know after birth, people don't realize of how many post kind of things happen right there. How are different ways that you help out? I know you talked about getting there and just being with the mom, but how do you help to generate better outcomes there for those parents as they come out of that birth experience? Yeah.
So, we live in a very snapback society, right? Women are just supposed to have a baby and then just get back to life. Like, we're done with the birth, snap to it. Let's get back to work. Let's start making the dinners. Let's clean the house. Like, our society doesn't honor the postpartum time, and it certainly doesn't support it. And so what a doula does is we help create that space for you. So we come into the home, and like I said, we help with the practical things first and foremost, because in my opinion, the only thing you and your partner should be doing for the first several weeks is laying in bed, cuddling your baby, talking about how beautiful your baby is, feeding the baby, feeding yourselves, and resting. Like, that is the goal of postpartum recovery, right?
Very true.
So we help that happen. We help that happen. We feed you, we answer your questions, we help around the house. That's really the main goal. If the family wants to breastfeed, we're a huge support in that. That can be challenging sometimes. There's a lot of questions around that. So hands-on there for questions and assistance with that. And again, a lot of normalizing. And we do this in birth too, right? So birth and postpartum, if you haven't been through that before, it can feel very out of control. It can feel scary. It can feel unsettling at times. And so having a professional and an expert there with you to say, this is normal, or no, this is not normal. Let's reach out to the doctor. That is huge, especially with new babies, because obviously parents want to do everything perfectly and right for their baby, and they want their baby to be healthy and happy and well fed and whatnot. And so to be able to say, hey, do you think my baby's getting enough? Do you think this umbilical cordlet's okay? I think this might be a diaper rash. What do I do? You know, all those questions that come up all day long, we're there in your home, and we're able to guide you on those. And to remind you that you now have mother's instinct, you now have father's instinct, and really promoting the use of that. So we're there to answer the questions, but we're also there to encourage you into gaining that confidence in those early days, which is so, so important.
Very true. Because yeah, I know if not, then we always turn to that Dr. Google, which we always hear the kind of horror parts of it. And so it doesn't really give us that clear view looking that way. So
right. You have to know where to get your information. We always want to make sure that we're looking at evidence-based sites so that we're getting the right information. Yeah. Very,
very true. So tell me, what are some tips you have, especially for our young moms, about how they can stay healthy? Because I know there's not only the physical part, but there's the mental part, all these different things. What are some tips that you have for them to help them stay healthy and get back to doing what they love?
Yeah, so the first tip is to not rush it, to allow yourself to sit in this beautiful postpartum recovery. And that doesn't just go for the mother, that goes for the father. It goes for the whole family, the pets, the siblings. Everybody has to adjust to what it's like to have this new person in the family. So number one, have realistic expectations. Understand that it's okay to feel like it's hard, because it is hard. And that doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It doesn't mean you have a bad baby. It just means it's hard. We have to get into a rhythm and a groove. And so give yourself that time. Go into it with realistic expectations. Prepare. Everybody puts so much effort into the birth day, right? We hire a birth doula, we make a birth plan, we buy all the things for birth. It's very focused on birth, but we forget that we're going to come home with a new human. So what can we do to prepare a postpartum plan? What can we do ahead of time? Can we fill the freezer with healthy meals? Can we schedule friends to have a meal train? Can we have someone come and walk the dog? Can we have someone come and clean the house even once a month if we can afford it? What can we do ahead of time so that really during this recovery period, you can just slow down, because it truly is a time that we never get back, right? When you ask these parents, they all say, oh, I wish I would have been able to enjoy it a little more, or not rush and be worried about everything. So just let yourself be in it and know that it's challenging and it's beautiful and it's magical, and all of that is okay.
Awesome. Because that's a huge part right there, just because I know, especially for us, when we had our young boys, you always have the 10 billion things going on, from family coming in to all these different things, trying to get back to normalcy, all this. Absolutely. So yeah, just to be able to take that time to enjoy that little one and to have that time with them to bond is a huge tip right there.
Yeah, you never get that time back.
No, that is for sure. So tell me, what other advice would you have for our community here?
Something that I always like to speak to a little bit is the importance of partners. Um, I feel like a lot of times dads and partners are kind of left behind. They're not really acknowledged. They're not really part of the process. And I think that's really a disservice to everybody. Um,
Hmm.
so try and get your partner involved. Have them help out with selecting a doula. Have them present when you're doing your prenatal visits. Have them asking questions. Let them come, encourage them to come to the classes, the childbirth education classes and the postpartum classes. In our classes that we teach, I always incorporate that in. What will you be experiencing during this phase of labor? How can you be supportive? What can we do for you to prepare? And that goes for postpartum as well. The fathers, the partners are going through a massive adjustment as well. They can even have postpartum mood disorders. And so we really need to acknowledge them and support them and let them speak freely. I can't tell you how many times I'm on postpartum visits and I get a quiet moment alone with the dad or the partner. And I say, so how is this going for you? Like, how has this all been for you? And I've had men just break down into tears, sobbing, say, you know what? I'm 4 months in and you're the first person who has said that to me. So that's a really big piece that I like to offer to people, to really incorporate our partners and dads. You have such an important role, such an important role. And you can't mess it up too. And that's really important during birth. I always tell them, even if you just sit there with your hand on her hand, you're doing a great job. You don't be afraid to mess up. Just be there and be that consistent presence. We talked a lot about realistic expectations. That's a big one that I like to include going into birth and postpartum. Adjust your expectations, because that is a huge reason people feel disappointed or overwhelmed, because they think it's supposed to be perfect, but it's not.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so those are the main ones.
Awesome. That's the thing, because we actually got lucky. We had a few friends push us on our first one to do what's called Bradley classes. And so with that, it kind of got me kind of pushed more into kind of being a little more of a coach to help out right there. It's why I learned more. But the being able to be right there with my wife and with those little ones right as they came and help to catch them as they came out was just kind of one of those experiences that I wouldn't give up for anything. And so, yes, for any of you dads, make sure to be as much of a part of that process as possible, because
and to your comfort level too, right? Like, we have some dads who are like, nope, that's why we're hiring you. Like, it's not my thing. I'll be in the room, but I really can't be front and center. And that's okay. But we also have partners who really want to get involved. They just don't know how. And that's an important piece to understand about hiring a doula, is that sometimes they say, well, I don't want my partner to be left out. If you have a professional doula, then she will not leave you out. Our job at the end of the day is for us to help you support your partner, right? So there is plenty of supporting for everyone.
Awesome. So tell our community kind of how they can get a hold of you. Do you ever have questions or want to use your services?
Yeah, so our website is doulasofAustin.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram at Doulas of Austin. My website has the email. You can call me, you can submit an inquiry on the website. And then I'll just mention two things that have been very helpful, especially through this pandemic. We offer the childbirth education and then a 4th trimester class, which includes newborn care and the postpartum recovery for the family. And those 2 classes I'm offering now virtually if people feel more comfortable. And so, a lot of those public classes have been canceled. So you don't have to go without education and preparation. We can do this virtually. And then lastly is an RN concierge service that I added on, where you just pay a monthly fee and you have unlimited virtual access to me for all of those questions and concerns that come up. Once you bring your baby home, the baby will see the pediatrician within the first week. And if everything is okay, you won't go again until 2 months. And then mom only gets 1 postpartum checkup 6 weeks after birth. So again, when we talked originally about that lack of care and support that happens, That's what I'm referring to. So this RN concierge, you know, if you don't want someone in your home for the postpartum doula support, you can do this RN concierge service, and you will have direct access to a registered nurse to ask all those questions of, without having to tote the baby into the office, without, you know, having to do any of that. It's super convenient, it's super cost efficient, and it offers a lot of peace to families.
Very true. That's a huge service. Yeah, thank you for thinking about that right there, especially for moms and everything going through everything we have over the last while, but also a service kind of future-wise to kind of help out right there.
Yeah, you don't have to not have support. It is still available.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again for coming on here with us and everything that you do for our community and for especially those new moms and parents out there. And once again, this is Dr. John Guymon here with Gateway to Wellness, and we're helping you to get back to what you love.